Hello. I keep finding that I think about the beginning of life a great deal because I find it so confusing. In fact, I feel that it's impossible for life to have started, human life in particular. It just doesn't seem to make sense how it could be possible. Because the way life is now, obviously, a child needs to have parents. It needs to have two parents, one of each sex. And of course, the mother has to produce the child, has to maintain the child for 9 months, and then give birth to a baby. And it all just seems impossible at the beginning. And it's the beginning of things that I find most interesting. Not when society has been formed and all that, but when there was nobody, and it's the first of humanity. It just doesn't make sense to me. So obviously, human life is impossible to have started based on the model we have now, a man and a woman having sex, and then a baby growing inside the woman and then popping out. So that's impossible at the beginning because there is no man and woman. So it seems reasonable to think that life began as some sort of self replicating animal. So you have an animal that's alive, and somehow it creates another copy of itself that becomes alive as well. And then the model of having a man and a woman arose out of that. It was created from that original one animal producing the next generation. It progressed and became a man and woman producing a child. But it all just seems impossible, and it is so amazing. So I'm trying to imagine what it was like at the beginning. You would have a self-replicating system where an animal that's alive somehow gives birth to another copy of itself that's also alive. And this process happens continuously until eventually you have a man and a woman model that somehow comes into existence. But then I'm thinking, well, if you have a man and a woman that produce a baby, how do they begin to manage that baby being born? So when the woman goes through 9 months of pregnancy and then a baby pops out, the baby is attached to the woman by an umbilical cord, I believe. I'm not sure how it works, to be honest. I believe that the baby pops out and the umbilical cord is still attached to the woman somehow. So the umbilical cord will have to be cut. So I'm wondering, the first time a baby was born, how did the person helping the mother, how did they know to cut the umbilical cord? Wouldn't they be really scared and want to keep the umbilical cord attached to the mother? Because if that's how it is, the baby's born, then they'll be too scared to cut anything. It amazes me how we learned to actually cut the umbilical cord and know where to cut it and what to do with it and how to make sure the baby didn't get injured. It just amazes me that we learned to somehow cut the umbilical cord in the right way. How did that process get learned? And then how did it get taught to other people? It's all so amazing how the beginning of things worked. And where did the food supply come from? Why was there food anyway? And then, of course, we have food that we eat that can only be eaten when we've cooked it. So, how did we even get the idea to take meat or an animal or whatever and cook it and change its consistency so that it could be eaten? how did we learn that process? I don't understand the intellectual leap to form these judgments and to know what to do. Part of me wonders how we learn to eat anyway. So, human beings start as being a baby to begin with. And there's no baby that can take care of itself as far as I know. So a baby has to have parents. And somehow the parents know to eat. Now obviously you get hungry and you want to eat something. But what I'm wondering is, how do we intellectually know that the way to handle hunger is to put something in your mouth and eat it? How did we learn that? How did we learn what to eat? And then how did we learn to eat other animals? How did that even occur to us, to eat another living thing? And learn cooking and understand that you could cook something and it would create food. So I'm thinking there may have been some forest fire or something that cooked an animal, and then humans found it and then realized that they could eat this thing. And then of course we learned how to make fire. And I don't know how to make fire. Do you know how to do it? So if you're in a forest somewhere and you're hungry and you wanted to cook an animal that was just there on the ground, how would you start a fire? There's so many things I simply don't understand at the beginning of things. And it all seems impossible, frankly. But I have to accept that we're here. So obviously we may progress somehow. But it's such an incredible mystery, because there's so many complexities about living comfortably, living properly. I just don't understand how we could learn these things in time to stay alive and to develop. And then we grow into billions of us. There are billions of humans on Earth. I think it's almost 8 billion people on Earth. It's just so stunning what we've created and how we live. But it's always the beginning that I come back to you that just doesn't make sense. It just seems impossible. So maybe humanity was some sort of self-replicating animal at the beginning. So we didn't need to have a man and a woman. It could be just one living animal that produced the next generation. And then man and woman became a new model of producing the next generation. It'd be so fascinating to be able to go back in time and see how we were created and how it was at the beginning. And it is so frustrating to not know how it could be possible. I don't think there's been any explanation of how we could have come into being except the existence of God. That's the only explanation that has held ground and grown in popularity. Incredible popularity. But it does seem impossible otherwise. So I'm 47 now. Maybe at some point I'm going to have to accept that the existence of God is the best explanation we could have at the beginning of life. It is so strange and so frustrating to not know how we came to be.